on the end of the Bible. And then I'd like to reserve a little bit of time to talk about the exam as well. So. And I realized in the 7:45 that I've got more stuff on these slides than we've got time to do. So I may be skipping through some things to make sure I, especially get stuff that will be on the mini exam. But I will tell you right now that the mini exam is tilted or weighted in terms of its content toward stuff you spent more time on, like the Gospel or the Paul. There's a little bit from Hebrews and Revelation, from the readings, and from a few things I'd like to have today. But that's just a small part of the exam. So if we go fast, please do not panic. I'm providing you stuff. Do I have a review sheet? And I will do that. If some of it's happening, I'm still lecturing at 1:45. Because I want to make sure that we're 10 minutes at the end. So let's use this form tackle. I'm going to wrap up, but do it right. So yeah, we'll do this. So we come to the last C, right? So 5 C's in this class: creation, covenant, Christ, church. And this week we're on consummation. What's the word consummation mean? What does it mean? Yeah, ending, that's right. Ending, finalization, wrap up, conclusion, putting a bow on. So that's exactly right. Consummation is the end of the story. But it's not just like the dead end. It's kind of like that's how we're going. So that consummation. And so we're going to spend most of the time today on 2 books that kind of look at the whole big picture and draw on some things from the past, so like even earlier stuff from the scores, and include it in discussion about the present and a little bit about the future as well. So I want to introduce you to a term that you will come across in literature about the Bible, and perhaps even in your New Oxford Annotated, and that's the word Catholic. And I'm very mistaken because remember, if it was not a capital C with the word Catholic, we're going to talk a little bit about Catholic epistles or Catholic letters. The word Catholic here is not a reference to the Roman Catholic Church of the Pope. Catholic, before it was the name of a particular expression of Christianity based in Rome, the word simply means universal or general, or as they would say it themselves, all y'all. It's for everybody. And so when we're talking about Catholic materials in the New Testament, we're not talking about, for instance, Philippians, because Philippians is for the Philippians. It's for the church at Philippi. It's got one name on the envelope. It's got one name on the email. We're talking about Titus. Titus is written to Titus. But the book of James, for instance, is not written to James. It's written by James. And it's written for broader distribution. It's written for everybody. It's got Catholic scope. So you'll come across that word, and it really just means general or intended to be dispersed widely. What do we mean by that? What are the 7 general letters? We're talking about James through Jude. I will not say a lot about all these, but you should know all the books of the Old Testament, 13 New Testament in order, so you should know these. Talking about James, 1st and 2nd Peter, 2nd and 3rd John, Jude. Those are the general letters that are in the New Testament. They're addressed, as we said, not to specific audiences, but to be spread around widely. That's what we mean by the word Catholic. These were situated in the decades after the death of the Apostle Paul. So we're moving further along on the timeline. We don't know the exact date of Paul's death, late 50s, 60s, somewhere in there. These materials we're going to look at today are from after that. So they use it nicely at the end of our study of the Bible itself, because they're some of the last materials to be produced. They discuss many problems of the emerging first century church, and notably this, they are problems that are often outside in problems, as opposed to inside out problems. So inside out problem, you look at 1 Corinthians, is about that. All right, 1 Corinthians says, stop fighting over spiritual things. You're not doing the Lord's Supper the right way. There's a problem in the church, inside problems. Some of these, when they're talking about general letters, especially for instance, 1 Peter is an example, problems from the outside in particular persecution. As we go later in the first century, persecution of the church increases. Conflict increases. How do you navigate problems from the outside in? A couple other things to say about Hebrews here as introduction, and we look specifically at this book. The date of Hebrews is around 70, we think. We don't know for sure. It's very difficult for us to nail down in precision at a specific date. The author, these three terms we know, is an anonymous Hellenistic Jew. Never says who it's from, but it's clearly someone who has great command of the Greek, as you see underneath there. Best Greek of the New Testament. This is someone who worked in the writing center as a tutor when he or she was in college. By the way, I say she because there's more evidence that Hebrews could have come from the hand of a woman than any other book of the Bible. And still, probably the odds are not in favor of it, but there is a line of thinking that the person behind Hebrews was Priscilla. Some scholars have brought that idea forward. Priscilla was mentioned in a number of places in the Testament, including the Apostle Paul, Priscilla and Aquila, 10 acres. But whoever was, great rhetorical skill. And so Jewish as well, because he clearly see a person who's something anonymous Hellenistic Jew. The genre of Hebrews is not really a letter, although there are some letter-like aspects of it, back in Proverbs 20. Please note, Hebrews is more like a sermon, an extended treatise, or an extended argument. It's one idea with a couple of different facets to it, as opposed to some of the letters of Paul, where like, okay, I got one for Titus, we're going to address like 15 different issues here. This is maybe one big issue. What is that big issue in Hebrews? If you look at the top of the screen, I call Hebrews the book of hanging there, at least part 1. Revelation can be part 2. But these materials from late in the New Testament have that as an idea. Hang. Don't quit. Don't go back. Don't throw it in reverse. Hang in there. What do we mean by that? Well, you read some passages from Hebrews for today, but you did not read Hebrews chapter 6. And Hebrews 6 gave us a little bit of a glimpse into what's going on in the community and the thing that prompted the sermon. So if you let your eyes kind of scan over here, beginning at verse 4, it's impossible to restore again to repentance those who have once been enlightened and have tasted the heavenly gift and have shared in the Holy Spirit and have tasted the goodness of the Word of God and the power of the age to come, and then have what? Fallen away. Since on their own they are crucifying the Son of God and are holding him up. What do we mean by falling away? Here's the idea. You may want to write this down. The recipients of this sermon are probably people who have converted from Judaism into Christianity, but have begun to have second thoughts and are feeling an allure to go back to Judaism. So the allegory that I've used in church when I preached on Hebrews is like this, okay? How many years ago? 100 years ago or so. Somewhere in a field right around here, there was a Sioux County farmer who was the first Sioux County farmer to get a tractor. Everybody around him, and for his life up to that point, he had pulled his plow with horses. And that always worked fine. But he was an early adopter. I hear there's these tractors. I'm going to get a tractor. So he gets a tractor. And he's had the thing for a year, and it's not going well. Thing gets flat tires, smoke's coming out of the wrong pipe, oil's leaking, can't get it started in the cold morning. It's not going well. And in his mind, he's thinking, I should just go back to horses. It was so much easier when I had horses. But someone says, no, I know it seems like that right now, but you're on something good with this tractor. And in fact, the future is a tractor, it's not a horse. So even though it's difficult, don't unwind the clock and go back to where you were. These Jewish Christians are facing some issue. It's unclear exactly what that issue is, but they're tempted to go back into Judaism. And the author says, preachers, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't go back. Don't revert. Let's get a little more specific about that. In Hebrews, the idea that's developed is how and why Jesus completes, culminates, consummates Judaism and is superior to the expressions of Judaism. It's already done with Jesus, is the message of Hebrews. So one of the ways that this is depicted is, and you can summarize this in your notes, is that Jesus is better than what we had before. Look at the Hebrew books in the left column and the book of Hebrews in the right column. The Hebrew books suggest that the last messenger who got the prophets of Hebrews, the book of Hebrews says Jesus is better. You get a direct line from God in Jesus. The Hebrew books, so we're talking here Deuteronomy, Exodus, Joshua. Moses and Joshua, they bring peace to Israel, but it's not lasting peace. Jesus Christ brings perfect peace. And then there's a lot in here about sacrifice and the priesthood. More about that on the next slide, but that sanctuary and sacrifice, tabernacle, and temple required repeated sacrifices. And the sacrifice of Jesus is a once and for all sacrifice. I'm going to skip this slide and show you what we mean specifically about priesthood. This is developed in what we read in chapter 7. The idea that Jesus is a superior priest to the priests of the tabernacle and temple, the old way priests. All right? So the old way priests are called the priesthood of Aaron. That's right, that's legit. Aaron was the Levites, the priests, goes up and talk about that priests like this stand before God on behalf of the people and plead for the forgiveness of the people. God, the people messed up, but we're sorry. Here's an atoning sacrifice. Please forgive the people. That's Aaron's priesthood. But what the author of Hebrews says is there was a priesthood before him. There's someone who came before him that was even better. And that person in that priesthood is called the order of Melchizedek. Melchizedek only is, he pops up on the screen and off the screen in Genesis chapter 14 as the king of Salem, who has an encounter with Abraham, and is a priest before Aaron. And the author of Hebrews says, you know what, why are we relying so much on the priest of Aaron? Because we had a priest before that, we need a better priest, and that's who Jesus is. So what's the difference? Aaron's priest, the order of many priests, the order of Melchizedek is one priest. You don't need to have a whole army of priests to go between you and God and effective purpose. And that's Jesus. Aaron's priestly order made sacrifices day after day after day after day. Jesus made propitiation or forgiveness or connection with God all at one time. That's better, right? One is better than having to do it over and over again. Repeated sacrifices or one sacrifice. Aaron and those priests stand at the altar. Jesus stands beside God. The priest Aaron could actually never take away sins. But Jesus will perfect people for all time. I'm less concerned that you have every one of those lines written down, and more concerned that you understand generally the difference between the Aaronic priesthood and Melchizedek priesthood. Priesthood of Aaron is over and over again, year after year. You got to keep doing it. You got to keep making a sacrifice. Jesus did it once for all. And that's better, the writer of Hebrews says. That's better. Jesus is in the order of Melchizedek. That's what you were assigned to read with Hebrews. That's about something I want to say about this book. Is don't go back. Don't give it. Don't quit. You're on to something. See it through. And the author of Hebrews says, we're not going to give up the habit of meeting together as some people are doing. Some people have stopped. They just didn't say anything. Don't be like hang in, part one. Just a word or two about a couple of the other of these letters that we referenced in one bullet point for each one. I'm not going to talk about 1 Peter and 1 John because that would just be unfair to those books because they have a bit more content in there. But I'm going to boil down the rest of these for you just to one line. That would be enough for you to know. Book of James, the presentation of James. Faith without works is dead, is what James says. James really sounds a lot like some of those social justice topics we discussed in the Old Testament portion of this class. You know, you can have all the right ideas, you can sing all the right lyrics, but if you don't live out your faith, then almost by definition, it's not alive, it's dead. So how to live in faith. By the way, James is half-bro number 1 to Jesus. Half-bro number 2 is coming here. James was the son of Mary and Joseph. So like Jesus, he's the son of Mary, but Jesus is not that Joseph. But they grew up in the same house, and they played racquetball together. Brothers. 2 Peter is a book that talks like Jude about the return of Jesus. It has some of these apocalyptic overtones to it as well in the end times. That's a theological book. Jesus is still coming. The book of 2 John is a book that deals with the idea that Jesus did not come in the flesh. It says, no, he did come in the flesh. Here and there in the readings, you come across the term Gnosticism, paired with Jesus, Gnosticism. Gnosticism is the idea that everything in the flesh is bad, everything tangible is bad, everything material is bad, and only the immaterial is good. You'll learn more about Gnosticism in Christian Story 2. But I think 2 John like some of the pastoral epistles, is pushing back on that idea. It says, no, you can find Jesus in the flesh. 2 John, like 3 John, are just one chapter long. 3 John is about hospitality, especially to those who walk in the truth. Some of you really value this Christian virtue, hospitality, and why do 3 John is about hospitality to your brothers and sisters. And then half row number 2 is Jude. Again, this is one of those single chapter long books. This is another guy who grew up going to the family dinners with Jesus. Jude is his full name, called Jude. Why chapter 3 years to persevere through difficult times? You can feel that outside in pressure on the church in these books. You got compassion. Don't quit. If you will need to know no more for the beginning example of just a big idea. Oh, that this was a semester-long course that people could always need. We do want to look in detail, though, for a half hour here before I get tackled on Revelation. Really, I don't think we do a lot of this, but I think we do. Revelation singular, not revelations. Assuming why that might matter, but so commonly referred to people learn the revelations. That's cool. Not even revelation. It's not a bunch of revelations. It's one story. Amen. But there's a lot going on, and I have more material than I have time for, so we're going to be a little bit too. Again, pictures like that, people who love drawings and Revelation, you can see pretty crazy. Beasts. Why are these important? I'll tell you in a moment. Revelation is a word that means unveiling, and Greek the word is apocalypse. The apocalypse of John. It doesn't mean pulling back the curtain. No. What's behind door number 2? Unwrapping the Christmas present. Something is hidden from our sight. We're allowed to find out what it is. What's behind the curtain? The best verse that illustrates why the book has this name is Revelation 4, verse 1. After this I looked, and there in heaven the doors stood open. And the first voice which I had heard speaking to me like a trumpet, by the way, those of you who are English speakers, what do you call a comparison like or as? Simile, that's right. There's a lot of similes in Revelation. It's not something that looked like this. So it doesn't mean it was that. The voice wasn't a trumpet, but it was like a lot of similes. Said, come up here, come up here, and I'm showing you what will take place after this. This is why it's called the apocalypse, the revelation. I want you to see something that you can't see, that you need to see. Why do you need to see it? Well, because, as some scholars have said, revelation material, apocalyptic material, often involves crisis and catharsis. I like that language. Crisis and catharsis. What does that mean? Crisis means there's a problem, right? You know what crisis is. And in order to understand the fullness of the problem, you have to see the truth of it. There is a crisis going on among the readers of this book. So why do we have monsters and dragons and not mosquitoes and mice in Revelation? Because this is not a mosquito and mouse problem. This is a cosmic battle. This is serious. People are trying to harm the church. And to get the attention of the readers, we're going to talk about dragons with 7 heads. We're going to talk about beasts that are half bears and half leopards. You've got to pay attention to this. That's the crisis. The catharsis is, but we're going to be okay. Catharsis is always the end of a problem where you take a deep breath and go, okay, I feel better. Crisis and catharsis. The author, as was mentioned by our presenters, is John, quotation marks, but which John? No, in all likelihood, it's John, almost as common then as it is now. So we've got John the Baptist, we've got John the son of Zebedee, this is another John, sometimes called John the Elder. This is John. We don't know anything more about that, we don't know his last name. The date, second half of the first century, there's a range there, probably later, probably approaching the year 100, for reasons that I will know in a moment. And John situates the reception of this vision as he is on the island of Patmos. The island of Patmos is to the first century what Alcatraz is to the 19th and 20th century. What is Alcatraz? It's a prison. Anybody heard of Alcatraz? Yeah, it's really cool. I've been in a national park. It's an island in the middle of San Francisco Bay. It's a prison. And in the ancient world, sometimes when you had to get rid of somebody, you give a timeout and clear my mind. And so John is a timeout. And probably the person put in there, by the way, incidentally, there's a picture of, I've been there, I've been to Patmos. Like, if you ask any serious historian, they would say this isn't probably where John was when he got the revelation. But if you ask the residents of Epistles who would love to have your cruise ship pull up, you might survive things in gift shop. Oh, we'll show you exactly where he had the revelation. So this is where it's complicated and possible. So I've been there. It just, if you're ever kids with the whole world, go there. But go there knowing that people will show you whatever you want to see. And this is the case of that. No one thought this was going to be possible until the mid-1800s. Oh yeah, what's been done in that whole we have here inside of it. So look that way. Why Patmos? Probably because of this man, Domitian, mentioned by Logan, Domitian, Roman emperor at the end of the first century, no friend of the Christians, no friend of the Holy. He gets assassinated, that's good, but it's a time he was kind of a rough guy. It seems as if persecution kind of ebbs and flows for the church throughout the first 4 centuries, until you get to Constantine. It has points where it's really tough. Under the mission was tough things. The mission was persecuting the church. So we have an apocalyptic literature as a result of that. What is the genre of Revelation? This right now is in yellow here, the question mark, because it's the moment of always being that final letter. And we have this address to 7 churches of Asia Minor, so it's got letter elements. It's got prophecy in it, that it calls itself a prophecy, because it contains prophecy, in fact, 22 verse 10. And then it has to talk a bit about apocalyptic literature, because there's a lot of this that is classic form apocalyptic literature. I mean, the name itself, apocalyptic, comes from this book. Apocalyptic literature contains a number of significant features. It always does. And I wish I could make this next slide go one at a time. So just listen, don't write it all. Let's talk to these one at a time. First of all, apocalyptic literature appears in times of crisis and persecution. Most people know. That's why I wrote Revelation is to the New Testament, what Daniel is to the Old Testament. Remember how we put Daniel like in that intertestamental period because it's very late by the last couple of the Old Testament from the South, 160 right now. What was going on in that time? Remember? Persecution of the Jewish people by Antiochus Epiphanes. terrible, terrible things happening. The circumcision's outlawed, orders are being thrown up, you know, and the people didn't know what to do. Well, suddenly here comes this message from the past, from the angel. It says, yeah, this is all going to happen. We knew it's going to happen, and the Son of Man is going to come with the problem and set things right. So now we're like 250 years after that. Domitian's in charge. The Christians are being persecuted. Just like Daniel, we've got beasts and monsters, but the Son of Man is coming in the clouds to set things right. Book of Revelation is more common than Daniel than any other book. It often has periods of profound persecution and a need for resistance. Hang in there, part 2. The need to resist. Don't quit, don't begin. Apocalyptic literature loves dualism. Dualism means, paired opposites. Us and them. The good people, the terrible people. Good people are, like they have rainbows around their heads, they're shining like gold, pure white clothes, that's us. The them is horrible dragons, monsters, body, flames all over the place. It's not even what. There's not nuance in this. It's not like, wonder that's up. It's always very clear, us and them. There's no gray. Now and then, here's how it is right now, but let me show you what is to come. It's going to change. It's not going to be like this forever. God's going to fix it. Good and evil. Matching opposites. Dualism. And then there's this rescue, this redemption thing. Good will overcome evil. Often in apocalypse, you get that motif that we have in chapter 12. Let me show you around. Let me kind of give you orientation to what's happening in the world. You thought you knew what's going on. I want you to see what's really from God's. So what we have in the genre of Revelation is really a mixtape of all of these different themes of Scripture. It is prophecy. There's songs in there. We don't have the tune, but we do have the text. Words of encouragement in that apocalyptic stuff too. Revelation, there's like a mostly but not entirely. It's mostly apocalyptic, but it's kind of like, some terrible people, just awful people, go to a pizza ranch and order like a half taco, half pepperoni pizza. Thick and long. Like the mixing stuff together. In this case, it's like 3/4 taco, 3/4 of the taco. And there's some other there. Okay, what are the recipients of this book? The 7 churches of Revelation, if you can look at we're talking about this Turkey, the western coast of Turkey. You can see Patmos marked with the black map here. There's the island, timeout area where the John is. And then, clearly there's a mail carrier that can go back and forth across the sea, across those streets there. And then this letter was circulating, getting an emphasis and carried along this mail route to these other churches. So, again, I don't want you to write down all this another time, but when it comes to those churches, the message is, before we get into demons and dragons and things like that, the message is, there's a couple things y'all need to work on. That's why if you look at the bottom line, there's a lot of nevertheless. The writer, John, is kind of equivocating. He's saying, yeah, there's some things you guys are good at, nevertheless, there's some ways you can be better. I'm proud of you that you're doing this, but we have to be better in this area. So it seems like perhaps John the Elder, maybe he used to be a certain right preacher around these 7 churches. We don't know, but he knows enough to say to Thyatira, you got a problem in your church. There's a woman who's stirring up problems, and he calls her Jezebel. He knows enough about Laodicea to know that they're apathetic. You got to fish for pathetic. Laodicea is great because Laodicea he described as lukewarm. In other words, you can't figure out what you want to do. Lukewarm just means room temperature. It's like, I wish you would be hot coffee or cold milk, but instead you're room temperature coffee or room temperature milk, which is no good for anybody. Quit being so double-minded and apathetic. So the writer knows about these churches. Some themes here in Revelation. Again, I would encourage you not to write everything down, but just write down what's in yellow. Lots of signs, things to be watching for, hints of a change in the tide. Some symbols, things represent reality. And then specifically, there's codes. Why would you have codes? So can I tell you guys an embarrassing story? Embarrassing story from my past. In 10th grade, I had a crush on this girl from my class. Yeah, her name was Carrie. And so I liked her, and my buddy knew that I liked her, my buddy Chris. And he liked another girl in the class. And so when we wanted to talk about these girls, when they were in the room, we had code names for them. And so the code name for Carrie was the title of a song by the band Oasis. It was called Wonderwall. Have you heard that song? And so I would talk about Wonderwall when Carrie was in the room. And I'm like, Wonderwall is good. I take Chris. It's code. Come to find out later, he had told her that she was Wonderwall the day after we made the code. And the whole time I thought I was undercover of code, but she knew I was talking about it. So why would you have code in your relationship? You have a code. And we talk about here. So you can write 666 in case along that mail route, what if a Roman soldier seals this letter and reads it? It doesn't say Caesar, it doesn't say Rome. It says 666 or Babylon. And therefore you have plausible deniability. I don't know what I'm talking about. Just spell Babylon. Look at the text. That's why we have codes. Don't ever do that to your friend. The taco pizza and Wonderwall. I still sleep on. Numbers are emblems of perfection and imperfection. We talk about a lot of sevens, number of perfection. 666 is like triple imperfections. Yeah, a lot of numbers. So this paragraph is about the whole thing with Revelations, and that this is not a discrete series of things that you can make into whatever you want. And so the writer of this, and I don't have the quote here, says, for example, when they're reading this, some people have discovered the locusts that are referenced in Revelation chapter 9 that have human faces, breastplates, and stingers in their tails are actually really Apache attack helicopters. Or at the mark of the beast is really a microchip placed under the skin or on product barcodes. Every one of you who's done a biblical message presentation now knows there's part of you what is a possible misinterpretation or misapplication? The whole complicated book of Revelation is rife for misapplication. People do it all the time. Well, does the mark on the hand must be a barcode that we all have to have? 666, I'm pretty sure that's Joe Biden right there. I did the math. People make it into whatever they want. But it's not choose your own adventure. Revelation is less about our future than it is about the author's present. And the author encouraging people to stay strong. John said to those churches, don't be quick when it gets tough. A couple other just themes here. Again, if you write down what's in yellow, we've got enough clash of powers. We mentioned that. The theme of justice, Jesus is going to set things right. He's the righteous judge. He will preside over these terrible things that have happened in the world. Interesting, we mentioned beasts. Why is there so much about beasts? Well, beasts come from Daniel. They leave no ambiguity about the problem. But also remember this. Christians were being thrown to beasts as persecution at that time. The Logan mentioned the Colosseum, right? Christians thrown to lions. But if the Apocalypse of John says that dragons with 7 heads can be overcome, you can take on a lion. You can make it. Lion's nothing compared to what Jesus is going to cut down in your defense. Theme of crowns pops up in Revelation. Who's really ruling now? Who's really in charge? And the answer is Jesus. There's a couple of different ways that you can break down the structure of Revelation, and I'm going to give you this in terms of 4 visions, and just if you can get the highlights on this, you don't need to write down everything that's on the screen. But there are 4 visions. The first vision is a vision of the glorified Christ. This is how it starts. John sees Jesus in a glorified form. And Jesus is really the one who wants these letters to be written to the churches. For some reason, all of a sudden this thing starts going automatically. I'm going to make sure I control it. The second vision is the future, the heavenly throne room. This is where people start worshiping, and all of creation kind of rises up in song. Every creature in heaven and on earth and under the earth, holy, 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 glory and honor, praise and majesty, the one who was and is to come. The third vision is the end of Babylon. Babylon, I mentioned, is code for Rome. At this point, Babylon itself, and by the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, is nothing to admire. But the Babylon that rules the world is Rome. And that Babylon is going to be thrown down and destroyed and comes to an end. Or the final victory of God's people. This is where you get these beautiful texts in Revelation 21. God will wipe every tear from their eye. Everything's going to be made new. The holy city of New Jerusalem. And then the new beginning of that New Jerusalem with the river of life. And I want you to note this. Let me just read it. And the angel showed me the river of the water of life, bright as crystal, flowing from the throne of God and of the Lamb through the middle of the street of the city. On either side of the river is the what? What does that say? Tree of life. Where did we last see the tree of life? Genesis, in the Garden of Eden. We remember those rainbow arcs I showed you on that one picture of the cross references? This is the longest rainbow you can get. Genesis until the last book of the Bible. Consummation is happening. The author, John, is going back to the most perfect thing he could imagine. That's just being revealed to him. I'm going back to the Garden of Eden. As Tim Keller, one of my favorite preachers, says, it's all coming, all the evil things are coming untrue. We're going back to the way God always planned it to be. And a few practical applications of Revelation, and worship is important. We're worshiping in this book than in any book of the New Testament. When you go to church on Sunday morning, we're called to reflect the words that's happening in heaven. Persecution is clearly taking place, and as in terms of practical application, this isn't a misapplication. We can't expect there to be a persecution in the church. There was then, and there will be in the future. But obviously, don't be surprised by that. Future hope. And we need this now, don't we, in 2020? It's going to get better. We got to hang in there. And that should motivate us to serve God and to face beasts, because we do know who wins. And then creation here is important too. You know, there's the earth being destroyed in fire. Well, maybe it's going to be renewed, and maybe everything that we do now matters eternally. Some impractical applications. To use this to identify the Antichrist, we joked about that already. You know, you can make the numbers out to whatever you want. Don't do that. Don't manipulate this text to say something that I'm not going to say. Don't use it to predict the day of the second coming. Although many have done that. Lots of people have stood out on the side of a hill because they're pretty sure it's going to be, by the way, it's always at the 21st of the month. Like December 21 or June 21 or August 21. Like Jesus is never going to come back on the 4th of July. It's got to be the 21st. Impractical applications, misinterpretations. The key to unlocking the book, and what I would really suggest is you've got, people say, well, this is all predicting, oh man, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden's going to be assassinated because there's the mark of the beast and now Kamala Harris is going to be president. The way to unlock this book pretty easily is to just to see some of the things that happen in this. And there are some places where you find like a crypt text or key to the code. One of the ways scholars point this out most clearly is here in chapter 17, it refers to this beast on 7 hills. There's one city in the world that's on 7 hills, that's the city of Rome. So, Babylon is Rome. Then you can start to go from there. If you realize that this is all about the Roman power, you can go from there to make other applications. The woman that you saw in verse 18 is the great city that rules over the kings of the earth. That's Rome. So this is a book about the Roman situation. And then you've got the 666 stuff, which we talked about already as a reference to Kaiser Nero. It's not a prediction about the year 4000. It's a reflection on the early days of the church. Just end with a couple of goofy pictures. Some people who have way too much time on their hands will do this. They'll look at the book of Romans, sometimes Daniel, and of course Revelation, to do stuff with dispensational timelines. I wish I had this much spare time in my life. There used to be like, you could buy good wall charts for people and stuff like this. I don't think that's my Revelation. And then you say, so these were 7 heads and 10 horns is NATO. Oh, so it's settled, it's NATO. It's misinterpretation, misapplication of the text. And so here's the consummation of our course on the Bible. You have to give the text in front of you a fair hearing in light of the context in which it was produced. And not cram it into our context and make it say what you wanted to say. It's doing violence to the Bible. Let it say what it wants to say about its place in this time. Okay, 1 minute before our next tackle. Let's wrap up with it. Have any questions on Revelation or Hebrews? Okay. So, I'm going to send around a couple of these study cue copies that are really small, but to get you started for mini exam on Tuesday. I know like I'm more than enough. Just keep your hand up if you haven't gotten it yet. That's what we're on. This is a little bit of a guide, I would say, on how to get a B in the mini exam. Because I'm not going to give you the whole exam ahead of time. This is how you want to get a solid 82, master these concepts. If you want to get a 92, go back through your materials again. I mean, for instance, I'm gonna give you one that's not, I'm gonna just do a contradiction here. I'm gonna give you one that's not on there, the kind of thing you should know. Can you, for instance, replicate the diagram of the four swords like opposites? Remember what that was? Be a good thing to know. That's the kind of thing that will take you from this sheet for the alienation, stuff like that. So, things that are on there, you'll know the books of the Bible. I'm just into the New Testament. I'm allowing you to forget the book of Obadiah for this one. Not that that's a good idea, but I think that's good. Know the books of the New Testament. Know which books of traditionally attributed to Paul, scholars say Paul wrote, which ones they think he did right. Be able to look at a passage that's taken from the Gospels and look for some cues and clues as to which book it may come from. I gave you some things in your notes that will point you towards certain books. Do you remember those? Are there any of those things left on the sheet left? Make sure that I don't forget anything that's on the sheet. Talk here. Yeah, important political leaders and religious movements. Can you tell me the difference between an Essene and a Sadducee? Can you be able to identify what's a priority for an Essene versus a Sadducee? That should be a good start. Yeah, there's going to be less stuff on Revelation, Hebrews, and more stuff on Paul. There's some stuff intertestamental, for sure. Now, what I want to suggest to you is that I think that for almost all of you, this exam is going to go faster than the others. Because there's a whole lot of multiple choice. Instead of writing the whole word on a blank, you have to write the letter C. There's a lot of matching, multiple choice, things like that. Not entirely. You got to books of the Bible, and there's going to be, I think, like 15 kind of short fill in the blank ones where you got to know the right word. But I do think this exam will take you less time to complete than the other ones did. I do think that the material here is a little bit bigger, and so there are more matchings and multiple choice. I don't want to stump you. There's no put these events in order where if you get one wrong, you get called the other one. I'm done doing that. It's just cruel to my teaching assistant too. So that's what to expect, but you still do have a 45-minute limit on this. If you're watching on Zoom, you'll get this on email. Make sure you communicate with me even on email, and you'll get it at the same time as your classmates get it. Questions that you have. I know a lot of you are going to email me on Monday night and say, we have to know this. Is there any that you want to do now? Okay. The Lord be with you as you study. I'll see you on Tuesday.